Welcome back, everyone, to the Geeks, Geezers, and Googleization Show, the home of Googleization Nation, where we talk with HR and business thought leaders about the crazy, never normal shift going on all around us. Our goal is to bring you ways to reimagine tomorrow and explore the ever-changing convergence of people, business, and technology. Here is your host, Ira Wolfe.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Geeks, Geezers, and Googleization Show. Thank you for being part of Googleization Nation. I'm Ira Wolfe. If you think this is just another podcast, think again. This is the voice of the most important conversations in the future of work confronting business leaders and people today. My goal is to bring you ways to reimagine tomorrow and explore the ever-changing convergence of business, people, and technology. Once again, I want to thank Avanti for sponsoring this episode of Geeks, Geezers, and Googleization. To download their 2024 Everywhere Work Report, which I highly recommend, go to adaptabilitytoolkit.com/2024 Everywhere Work. You'll also find the link in the show notes as well. On today's show, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics with one of my favorite guests and go-to innovation experts, Ben Bensaou. Ben published an article about 2 years ago that pretty much sums up what we're going to be talking about today. This article became the foundational message of the undergraduate class I teach in innovation and entrepreneurship, as well as organizational change in the graduate program. The title, You Can Innovate in Anything You Do. The article starts out this way. One of the biggest myths of business creativity is that the province lies within a few geniuses like Steve Jobs and Jeff Bezos, who exist on a different plane from us ordinary humans. It's a false narrative fed by news media that loves stories for featuring larger-than-life heroes, and if you can take it to heart, it can cripple the innovative spirit in your organization. Because all of us are living in a time of extraordinary and unpredictable change, or as I call it, never normal times, each and every one of us must learn to innovate. To do that, we all must proactively adapt our approach to work, to our careers, to our personal lives. There's no better person to help understand how to do that than Ben Bensaou. Now, it's time to welcome Ben to the show. If you've been listening to Geeks, Geezers, and Googleization for some time, you're likely familiar with the name. I first met Ben in the fall of 2021 when he released his book, Built to Innovate, which I also highly recommend you grab a copy of it. I was teaching my organizational change graduate class, and he agreed to be a guest lecturer. This was followed by a guest spot on the show in January of 2022, which remains one of our most popular episodes. Since then, I've been a huge fan with Ben, and you'll soon hear why. That book, Built to Innovate, by the way, was selected as a Thinkers50 Best New Management Book for 2022. Ben is a professor and former dean of executive education at INSEAD. If you're not familiar with INSEAD, it's the home of Blue Ocean Strategy, which I know many of you are probably familiar. If you're not, you should be. He was a visiting associate professor at Harvard Business School, a senior fellow at the Wharton School of Management, visiting scholar at the Haas School of Business at the University of California, Berkeley, and the long list of additional other credentials, education, and as well as publications. So I'm super excited and ready to welcome Ben M. Bensaou to the Googleization stage. Hello, Ben.
Good morning to you.
Yeah,
it's actually good afternoon for me in Paris, but yes, good to see you again. And thank you for having me on your show again.
Oh, absolutely. It's one of the miracles of technology, right? Including one of the mishaps we're having this morning. We had our power out, but we have a generator and we're up and somehow we're still up and running. So amazing.
It's horrible. Fantastic. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, innovation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Perfect example. I shared this many times years ago, but during the heat of the pandemic, another good friend of Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization, John Asani from South Africa, we had another a storm, a really bad downstorm, and I actually just ran out to go to to grab some coffee before we went on the air, and I opened the door, and there was water coming into my office. So during that show, I kept muting myself and putting him on the screen, and I would run out and throw some towels down, and how we got through it. And I'm not sure anybody would actually know that if they watched the show. But, sometimes behind the scenes, doing these things live is always interesting. But fortunately, we're able to do that due to innovation. Ben, again, I really appreciate you being here. It's always a joy to talk to you. One of the as I mentioned during the intro, you helped me differentiate this with that book, and it really transformed the way personally I approached innovation or thought about innovation. But now you're affecting the lives of many students, young and graduate students. But it was really that differentiation between which I'll have you explain, between innovating and innovation. Because the title of the show was basically kind of that innovation is usually synonymous with Steve Jobs. It's about inventing an iPhone. It's about starting a $1 trillion e-commerce business. It's usually these huge, massive, disruptive events where in our everyday lives, we all innovate in some way, and we all have that capacity to innovate in some way, even when we just have this new idea. So, but the class that I had this year, it's the first opportunity I had. It was undergraduate, so there were 18 to 21, 22-year-olds. It made a huge impact on them, on how they looked at their careers and their life, because it's like, I'm not sure if I'm an entrepreneur. I'm not that creative. They started to look at all the reasons that they just couldn't be an innovator. And by the end of that class, they all had these fresh ideas, a more positive outlook toward that. So one is, I want to thank you on behalf of them and everyone else of this differentiation. But it's not a simple it is a simple differentiation between thinking about innovation and innovating. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, well, maybe just to give kind of the context and explain to your audience where this is coming from. I can kind of maybe describe, first kind of the general research behind all this, and maybe share a couple examples to give people a way to think about the issues here. So I would say, all in all, I've spent about 20 years doing research, teaching, and consulting on innovation. And as the title of the show and my book might suggest, I particularly focus on helping companies develop their innovating capabilities. So you can see already the play of words here. It's about innovating capabilities. To get to that point, I've studied in depth, close to 100 organizations. Actually in the private sector and also in the public sector, in many different industries around the world, from startups in the Silicon Valley to small and medium-sized enterprises, all the way to large industrial conglomerates, in Japan, Korea, or Turkey. And along the way, I came across some fascinating companies. And these were companies that were able to proactively transform themselves into innovation powerhouses. And then when I looked at it, to my surprise, many of these firms were old, established companies operating in quite traditional businesses. And that's actually the reason why I wanted to first write a book and continue publishing around the topic. And I wanted to tell the story of these companies document some of their key insights. And of course, as you can imagine, as an academic, I wanted to codify what I had learned in the form of new concepts, new frameworks, and actually a toolkit. So one of the concepts is actually, it seems pretty kind of tried, but it's this distinction between innovation and innovating, which I'll come back to. But maybe just to kind of set the stage, let me give you a couple examples of what companies we're talking about. Take, for instance, Starwood. Most of the audience will be familiar with the global hospitality company. A few years ago, they organized here in Paris a global conference for 700 of their frontline hotel managers. So first we shared with them a few basic concepts and tools on innovation. And then we divided the 700 participants into 64 teams. So we gave them metro tickets, we gave them notepads and cameras. And then we sent them out in the streets of Paris to capture images, experiences, insights about ordinary travelers. Now, 3 hours later, they came back with amazing ideas and insights. They generated a total of 1,700 new ideas. Now, granted, many of these ideas focused on small incremental improvements to existing processes or services. However, among these, some ideas became the foundation for some global initiative that was launched by Starwood worldwide. For example, a new marketing program which they called Fantastic. This is a program to create special family packages based on the research they do on what kids want from a great hotel experience. Now, to be clear, none of these 700 people who participated in this exercise were innovation specialists. However, each of them understood that by simply stepping back away from their daily routines and immersing themselves in the life of their customers, that opened up floodgates of fresh new ideas. Just to, again, give a sense to the audience, let me tell you about a company called Fiskars. People might be familiar with Fiskars. Now, we're talking about a 400-year-old company, manufacturing company based in Finland. I suppose in the US they're quite known. They are known for their iconic orange scissor. So they make cutting tools, tableware, and gardening equipment outdoor equipment for gardening and other purposes. And for me, this is a very nice example of, once again, a very old company that was able to enter a totally new industry thanks to their very methodical, continuous, and systematic approach to innovation. To better understand the life of their customer, they applied what we know in design thinking. They tried to understand the job to be done by their customers, in particular their gardening customers. So they conducted an in-depth ethnographic exploration in the lives of home gardeners. So they looked at what happens before, during, and after home gardeners use Fiskars tools. And during this research, they made a significant discovery. They realized that watering was an essential task, a fundamental task in the experience of gardening customers. And they also realized that they themselves had the design skills and the technologies that would allow them to develop a highly differentiated watering solution, a solution that none of the existing players in the business could come up with. And then instead of opting for the conventional, you might have seen this in around, instead of opting for this conventional wall-mounted rack where you store your hose, they develop a standalone, all-in-one device which they call the water wheel. And the water wheel is a very innovative product, fitted with wheels, with a 360-degree range of movement, fitted with various accessories for different purposes, like, if you want to irrigate a plot of land for a long period of time, or if you want to set up a play area for the kids in the summer. Now, the water wheel went on to win many design awards, and it became one of the most very successful and profitable addition to Fiskars' product lineup. And to tell you the truth, I've seen many other examples of similar products that they launched that were the result of their continuous and systematic approach to innovation. So now, what can we learn from this firm? So what this is just to give you the context, and of course I've seen many other organizations of these types, and this is how I decided to introduce a new, let's call it, innovation narrative. And also I'd like to share with the audience maybe later how you can hardwire innovation into an organization's DNA. So how can you become more innovative? How can you be innovative like these companies? And this is the reason, again, like we're talking about Steve Jobs, right? Genius-led innovation, radical disruptive innovation is not easy. It's very hard. Not every company can be Apple or Tesla or Amazon. I think we all get it. And this is mainly the reason why I wanted to develop this different narrative about innovation, a different way to think about innovation. And I want to kind of, just using these two examples I just shared with you, kind of try to deal with at least three myths that we have about innovation. As you said earlier in the intro, the first myth is that innovation is all about innovation superheroes. So as we saw with Starwood, anyone can innovate. Innovation is everybody's job, everybody's business. Innovating, as I will try to explain, innovating doesn't require any special talent. Anyone can innovate. The second myth is that innovation is all about big bangs, disruption, breakthroughs. Well, then again, that's not true. We saw with the example of Fiskars that innovation is not only about big bangs, there are other types of innovation. And we saw that Fiskars, thanks to their approach to systematic and continuous innovation, they were able to enter a whole new market space. And just before I describe the distinction between innovation and innovating, let me talk about the third myth. The third myth is that innovation is the main responsibility of senior leaders or a few specialists in the organization, like R&D or new product development. But we saw again with Fiskars that it's not true. Everybody, or with Starwood, we saw that anybody within the organization can innovate, which means that the whole organization actually can participate in innovation. Now, so this is just to set the stage to kind of give the. There are actually two more pillars to the my innovation, if you will, narrative, let me just quickly tell you the two remaining ones, which actually relate also to the example I just gave. The fourth pillar says that in these highly innovating companies that I encountered during my research, innovation is not only happening internally, inside out, but also outside in. Learning, discovering customer needs, and learning how to address customer needs. So this is really looking at innovation as centered on customer. Innovation comes from customer. And I can come back on that, because the whole challenge is how do you discover and address customer needs, and actually I like to add non-customer needs. The fifth part of this new innovation narrative is that innovation is not all about startups and sexy high-tech companies. Any type of company, including, by the way, I've done quite a bit of research on public service and government agencies, all organizations can innovate. So where did the problem come from when I started to kind of spend time talking to people about innovation around the world? And I noticed that very often the word innovation itself, as a noun, innovation is a noun in English, the word innovation itself is quite intimidating. It tends to generate a sense of anxiety and stress, particularly with people who are on the front line. And I also noticed that many people come to innovation training programs. They have this expectation, they assume that their boss expects them to come up with the next kind of breakthrough product and discover a whole new market space. And you can't imagine, Ira, the pressure. They feel the pressure and they hate it. So, and by the way, this happened totally serendipitously, by accident. One day I stopped, having noticed this curious phenomena, I stopped using the word innovation in my teaching. Instead, I refer to innovating, or I simply use the word to innovate. And then something curious happened. This whole sense of tension and fear in the room kind of disappeared. And the reason, I think, is that innovating or to innovate does not imply any outcome or any result. When you think about it, a verb in English, and it translates similarly in other languages. I mean, I even did it in Japanese. Very often the word innovating, or a verb in general, kind of refers to an activity, a process, a set of behaviors that anyone can learn and practice. So, as I explain when I teach on innovation, is that innovating or to innovate is simply about looking for new ideas. Looking for new ideas, developing them, testing them, selecting the best ones, with no guarantee as to what you will find. And what I found is that this approach would allow everybody in the room to try their hands at, innovating. After all, very few of us are, born geniuses who can produce breakthrough insights on command. However, engaging innovating activities, looking for new ideas, is something that anybody can do. It can be taught, it can be guided, it can be guided by tools, techniques, and structured processes. So this is just like maybe the audience is familiar with the popular metaphor of the iceberg. So if you think of that iceberg, if innovation is the tip of the iceberg, the impressive peak rising above the water, then innovating represents what happens below the surface, represents what is beneath the surface. It represents the collective, individual, organizational capability that that is just waiting there to be activated. So when I talk about innovation, or when I talk about build to innovate, in my new narrative, the focus is not on innovation, the outcome and the result, is on building the capabilities of everyone, every team, every organization, and the focus there is on looking for new ideas. And this is where the conversation is very different, because now we're talking about an activity, we're talking about a process, something that can be learned, and where tools and techniques and processes can help. And more importantly, where the intimidation is pushed down, because you're just looking for new ideas.
Sorry, Ben, we're going to take we're at the bottom of the hour. We're going to take a quick break for about 1 minute. But what you just shared was so much in line with how, I mean, the title of this of the class is Innovation and Entrepreneurship.
Right.
And both are so intimidating to students, because many of them said, well, I'm thinking maybe I want to be in business, but I don't know if I have that ability. The innovation part, I'm not very creative, but I wanted to start a business, so I thought this would teach me how. And my approach to that from day one said, this class is not about starting a business. It's about developing a mindset.
Absolutely.
And it was really, I said, entrepreneur mindset. I don't care if you never want to open a business, even if you have a job. It is, not that it's bad, but if you're going to work for somebody and have a job, is how do you introduce new ideas? How do you introduce new ideas into your career? How do you parent differently, especially in these times? Especially, with all the changes going around us. So it's really about mindset more than the process of starting a business or the process of innovation.
And the first thing in the mindset is to first recognize that before getting innovation. Now, let me be clear. I mean, of course, if you happen to have a genius in the company,
take advantage of it.
Take advantage, take good care of that person. However, I can tell you that even as an educator, we haven't yet found a way to detect geniuses ex ante. I mean, we can come back. I mean, I don't want to get into a philosophical discussion here, but very often when we talk about disruption, even, by the way, Ara, when we talk about innovation, very often it's after the fact. It's after the fact. We say, oh, this is a great innovation. When do you know that a new idea is a great innovation, that it's going to be a disruption? Only when you have tested it in the market, when it has been successful. How many of these potentially disruptive ideas have died and we've never heard about them? So what I'm saying is that if you have a brilliant idea, if you have a genius in the company, fantastico, take good care of them. But we don't know how to detect them. So the only thing you can do for yourself and for the organization is to, and we might come back to that, for the organization is to give permission to people to innovate, which is to look for new ideas. And remember, I don't know if it will make sense to everybody, but we're talking about, I mean, I don't talk about creativity that much, but even when we talk about creativity, we have a tendency to associate it with what we often associate with artists, a creative artist. Mm-hmm. But in a sense, the innovation that we're talking about is commercial innovation. It's not about artistic innovation. So the commercial innovation is fundamentally about uncovering a need in the customer or non-customer's life. So in a sense, what we're talking about is a search exercise. Something exists there that maybe not perceptible to everybody. So this is where people like Steve Jobs, and all these disruptors might have a keen ability to actually have these piercing ears and eyes, and they see these things faster and better than other people. But in the end, the need was there. So anybody can learn how to, I refer to it, how to listen to the voice of the customer, how to listen to what I call the silence of the customer, and to learn from non-customers. So it is fundamentally first a discovery journey, and discovery, it's like, I don't want to make it algorithmic, but it is about looking into a space and developing some empathy to be able to hear and to see the pain points, the likes and the dreams of the customer. But the innovation is in the customer.
Absolutely. Ben, we're going to take this quick break.
Okay,
We
sure.
will be back in 1 minute. And unintentionally, you basically had the perfect setup for our commercial, as you'll hear about growth mindset. You've been listening to Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization. I'm here with Ben Bensaou, author of Built to Innovate, and a good friend of mine and a good friend of the show. We're talking about the difference between innovation and innovating, or to innovate. We will be right back. Stay tuned.
Are your employees feeling stuck and just showing up for a paycheck? Is your workforce working harder to get back to normal than adapting to the future? It's time to help them break their addiction to certainty and develop a growth mindset. Developed by one of the world's top-rated future of work thought leaders, AQ Plus Mindset is a powerful tool to help your employees embrace change, adapt faster, and grow on the job. Conveniently delivered to any smartphone or laptop and easy to digest 5 to 10 minute lessons. Managers can sit back and watch employee attitude shift towards growth and innovation in just 30 days. Are you ready to help your employees thrive in this ever-changing, never-normal world? Encourage them to show more grit, resilience, adaptability, and unlock their potential? The journey to a growth-filled future starts with a growth mindset. Visit aqplusmindset.com or call 484-373-4300.
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization. We're here with Ben Bensaou, author of Built to Innovate. We're having a great conversation, and Ben's giving us a masterclass in how to grow and thrive in this never normal world. Ben, we did have a question come in. I'm going to get to that because it was one of my questions. But you were on a roll. We were talking about many things there, and we want to make this connection because although you're so convincing, and to me it's just opening up so many different ideas. I can still look at my students. I can still hear clients. Is that, well, we're just not that type of a firm. We're just not that open-minded. We're not that creative, or and some of it's a fear of making a mistake. It's in class. I think that was the one thing that came out for me, and I know this happens at work as well, maybe more so because you're boss and you got a paycheck tied to it. Is people are afraid to try new things. They're afraid to ask questions. They're afraid to make a mistake and look stupid. So part of what I want to make sure we get to is, how can companies create an environment that nurtures that takes away that fear, that makes people okay with it? How can individuals, and I know you don't work individually with a lot of people, but you're not an executive coach, but how do does that frontline worker develop that skill as well? So what's the effect of the environment? What can other people do to help make it a safer place for people to innovate?
Well, and this is, of course, the next big question, I think, and I will try to explain that. In fact, Everybody has a role to play. Frontline workers, middle managers, and senior leaders. But I just want to kind of pinpoint the fact that as soon as you shift the focus from innovation to innovating, of course, the goal is I'm very clear that the goal is to get innovation. The problem is that, if you don't have geniuses, you have to basically tap and leverage the capability of the organization to get there. And of course, once you move to innovating and you say innovating is simply about looking for new ideas, you can see that now we're playing a numbers game. And everything else being equal, the more ideas you generate, the more chances you have that you'll get among those a great innovation. So how do you increase the number? So first we discovered that instead of relying on a few people who are specialists, right? I mean, either the senior leaders, whoever is a genius, or your specialist R&D or marketing people, you can actually tap, everybody can get involved. So you increase the number of ideas by multiplying by the number of employees in the firm, by saying, people have a job to execute, but it doesn't mean that when they interact with their customers, internally or externally, they don't see things. They don't have a creative capability, however small it is. But when it is multiplied by hundreds and thousands, then you may generate many more ideas. How do you generate more ideas? Well, you don't only look ideas in technology or products. As you set it up, you can innovate in everything you do. You can innovate in your products. You can innovate in your processes, internal processes, external processes, in your functions, in services, whenever. So for me, innovating, as you can already guess, the fundamental anchor is whether you have a customer or not. As soon as you have a customer, means that you can identify the pain points, the likes, and the potential wishes of that customer. It's just about listening, developing listening skills. So who has a customer? Everybody in the organization has a customer. Whether the customer is internal, does the HR have customers? Plenty of customers. Does a function have customers? Plenty of customers. Does a process have a customer? Yes, a process has many customers. So you can see that you can multiply the number of ideas that you can generate by looking not only in products, but in everything you do. And the third dimension of multiplying the numbers is by saying that, when would you start looking for ideas? You don't wait until you have a crisis or you're under attack and the company is in danger. You innovate at any time. It's a continuous process. For me, innovating is a habit. It has to become a habit. And the metaphor that I use is the one for sports. You're trying to develop your innovating muscle. And by developing your innovating muscle, you will develop more ideas, which hopefully, by the law of large numbers, might give you one great innovation. No guarantee, by the way. But just like, your muscle, how do you strengthen your muscles? You do reps. You go to the gym, you use tools. Again, we have tools for strengthening your innovating muscle, and you do repetitions. So it is. So now you put the point on the real problem. The real problem is at the organizational level. How do you create an organization that will help you release this capability that everybody has? So the first really important thing is that for people to innovate, they need to feel that they are allowed, that they have permission to innovate. If people kind of smile when I say this, and when I ask them differently, I say, well, what do you think would happen if you don't give permission to people to innovate? Well, guess what? They won't innovate. So you need to be sincere about it. You need to give people permission to innovate. The second thing that is important for them is that they have to feel that they're capable of doing it, which means that they need to have some proper training, so might have some time allocated to that. They might need some resources. They might need some support, in particular from middle manager. And thirdly, to innovate, people will need to feel motivated. They need to feel that when, like you were saying, when they come up with a new idea, however silly that idea is, they are not going to feel, bad about it, or feel that they're putting their career or their reputation in jeopardy. That their boss is not going to start, degrading them. I mean, this is what we all refer to as psychological safety. They have to feel safe that my ideas are desired. That when I express my ideas, I'm respected. I'm acknowledged for it. And if I have sometimes some good ideas that might contribute, in a very small part to a bigger project, I am recognized, if not even sometimes rewarded. So there's a whole notion of creating an environment where people feel that they are given permission, they are supported, and they are acknowledged and even rewarded when they come up with ideas. So now, how do, at least the organization that I studied, those companies, old established firms that transform themselves in very innovative companies, how did they do this? When I tried to look, figuratively look under the hood of these companies, I realized that they actually were operating with two engines. They had an execution engine, and I think we're all very familiar with the execution engine, or the execution part of the organization in which we work. The execution engine is focused on implementing, executing today's strategy. And then these companies, they also had what I called later an innovating engine. The innovating engine is focused on building the strategy of tomorrow. This is where the new ideas are generated. This is where they are tested, developed, and a few of them get selected, prototyped, tested, and the very best ones end up, moving into the execution engine to be implemented. So the question is, how do you as an organization build this innovating engine? And mind you, the innovating engine is a very concrete, fully legitimized, fully protected space and time where anyone is encouraged to engage in some sort of innovating activity. Remember the exercise with Starwood. An innovating activity could be simply spending 30 minutes, an hour, engaging, observing a customer or non-customer, coming back with those insights, sharing them with people. It could be participating in an innovation project where you're just the HR person who represents, HR in the team. I mean, many activities can account for being innovating activities. So now, go ahead.
Yeah, we have about 10 minutes left.
Okay.
So I want to make sure that we cover a couple things as well. And I think, I don't know where you were going, but we'll let you finish that thought. But I believe one of the questions that we had come in was from Rich. And he talked about the balance. How can companies balance the need for continuous innovation with maintaining operational efficiency? And I think you just did that to some degree, talking about the two different engines. But if there's anything you can add to that, go ahead.
Yes,
but let's be cautious of some time here. So
this is very important, actually. As I explained, I'm explaining how you build the innovating engine. But this is to say that, of course, the core of any organization, even a startup, when it starts to actually deliver, is the execution engine. And as I always say, it's nice to spend time imagining the future, but if you don't defend your business of today, guess what? You won't be there in the future. So it is very important to defend the business of today, which means executing flawlessly. What I'm talking about is how can you tap that additional capability that is latent out there? I mean, people, they don't use, their full brain. They don't use all the capability. They don't use all the observation, all the things that they experience every day is not capitalized on. So this is about how do you create that little space where you can tap this additional capability and actually generate ideas that will then go into the execution engine. So let's come back to the reason why the three, frontline people, middle managers, and senior leaders are very important in building this innovating engine. However small it is, the importance is not about how big it is about how consistently do you do it over time. So I've seen many companies, they give employees like 5% of time, 10% of time. The important thing is that you do it systematically and then people are all fully engaged. So the front line, they are naturally the people who are facing the customers and the non-customers. And so they are the ones who are in a better position to learn how to generate new ideas. So as I said earlier, these people can be very, I mean, you mentioned about blue ocean strategy, there's design thinking, there's lean startup, there are lots of tools and techniques, and I'm not dogmatic at all about these, that can help people generate ideas. So it's about generating ideas. And you remember I said it's about listening to the voice of the customer, what the customers are telling you. And this requires developing a skill for empathy, listening to the silence of the customer, what they don't tell you. And they don't tell you either because they don't know about that pain point or that need, or because they know about it, but they don't think it's your job to fix it for them. So when you discover those, you can ask yourself the question, well, what if we solve that problem for them? And I can promise you that if you solve for your customers, you solve a problem that they don't think it's your job to do, but you do it, they will love you. I mean, if I had time, I could give you a few examples of that, but I've seen some fantastic examples of that. And the last component for frontline is, as a matter of fact, to actually look at non-customers. And non-customers, because they're not customers, they are a wealth of inspiration of what you can do, either to convert them into customers or what you can bring your existing customers. So now, middle managers, Ara, as we discussed it before, this was the biggest surprise for me in the research. I discovered that middle managers are vital. They're vital to innovation. Without them, innovation is totally lost. And they are, as we know, they are very often overlooked. So, I mean, this is why I call them the forgotten heroes of innovation. And the reason is because they are fundamentally responsible for execution. They're not necessarily trained in innovation, and they don't have the same external pressure on innovation. Like, we said, frontline people, the frontline, they see it, they see the pain points, and they know that if we could fix this problem, if we can find an idea to fix this problem, create this additional value for the customer would be fantastically happy. So they know that. The senior leaders, they're worried about the survival of the company, and they know that innovation is an imperative. But middle managers, they're shielded from this external pressure. So, and by the way, they're the ones who are, interestingly, at the best level of elevation within the organization to be able to connect innovators with other innovators in the organization, connect them with resources, with people, with new ideas. And so I think they are the ones who need to be helped. And they are the ones, by the way, who can give permission. In the end, they are the ones who can give permission to their teams to innovate or not. They are the ones who can support the front line when they come up with an idea, whether they can send them to training. In many of the organizations, I mean, I don't have the time to maybe explain a formal structure for some of these innovating organizations that I encountered, but many of them, they had a centralized unit with coaches or experts or internal consultants that middle managers could call upon when somebody in their team wanted to innovate. They wouldn't have to, because they're not trained. They're not the ones who are going to innovate, but they can call upon these central units to bring a coach or a consultant, internal consultant, to come and help their team develop a new idea. And then this is a bootstrapping process, because now somebody in their team will learn how to do blue ocean, for instance, or would learn how to do design thinking. And that could actually, be a graduate from, this innovation central unit who could spread the message and could spread the capabilities within the organization. Some firms have like platforms, digital platforms, or actually a face-to-face platform where people can share ideas. So this is all the role of middle managers in support, giving permission, supporting and connecting the innovators. And then senior leaders also have a very important role.
Yeah, Ben, we can go on forever. And again, this is like a masterclass, just sitting back and listening to you. There's so much that we'll get into. I hope you'll come back and do this again. Always love all these conversations. We did have one other quick question, and I'm going to give a quick answer, but hopefully if there are more, that these were posted on LinkedIn. So hopefully that you can respond to anybody who asked a question or who wants to ask a question, but didn't have an opportunity. But this came from, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, but Redouane or Redouane. And the question was, how you can build the innovation, how can you build the innovation engine when the execution is not good and it's in transformation? My suggestion first is purchase Built to Innovate. Go to the book, but I'm sure there's a more in-depth answer. So hopefully, Ben, you can respond to Redouane and also to Rich if there's some additional comments or anybody else who wants to answer that question. I'm scrolling across the bottom. Your book, Built to Innovate, go to bensaou.com. What other ways can people get in touch with you, Ben?
Oh, on the website that you have there.
Okay.
I have a podcast there. I have a YouTube channel. They can find about it also on the website. I have a LinkedIn post. So I mean, and also I have an email address, so they can ben.bensaou@insead.edu. And I mean, many ways to contact me, and then we can start a conversation.
And we'll put those I'll put those in the show notes for you.
The quick answer to Redouane, metaphorically, it's very difficult to have a winning team with a bunch of drunken players. So I would say get your execution engine in shape. Primarily, I would say.
And good news,
innovation can help you get it in shape, but it's very important that execution is well done.
And good news, you already read the book. So, but again, hopefully you can respond a little bit more in depth or have offline communication with him. Ben, it's always good to see you. Again, I always sit back and sometimes it's refreshing what you've shared before, and it's bringing that to the front of mind. Again, sometimes it's just connecting new dots. So I appreciate you being here, taking the time out, and we'll hopefully you'll be back, and we'll be in touch.
Love to. Thank you, Aaron. Okay. Always fun. Thank you.
And thank you again for everyone for listening to Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization. Thank you for being part of Googlization Nation. If you're not a member yet, you can. There's no fees to it. You'll just get updates and newsletters and updates on the podcast. You can go to googlizationnation.com. Once again, I want to thank Ivanti for being our sponsor for this episode. And you can, once again, get their download of the Everywhere Work Report at adaptabilitytoolkit.com 2024 Everywhere Work. And until next time, don't let the shift hit your plans.
Thanks for watching Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization. Be sure to listen to the podcast and follow us on YouTube. This show was produced and edited by Hilton Productions.